Hello, and welcome to this overview of the marriage of convenience trope in historical romance books. I'm Olivia, your favorite resource for book recommendations you can easily screenshot, and you're watching Random Olive Reads. So, first up, a little bit of a trope overview and what exactly is marriage of convenience. Now, in this one, two people agree to marry in some sort of mutually beneficial arrangement. Usually, it's for financial security or protection or some sort of property exchange, or even one person needs caretaking for their dependents. Now, the marriage usually occurs pretty early in the plot, within the first third or so, with or without any sort of intimate relations between the main characters. Um, this one is probably one of my favorite tropes because the marriage happens early, and in historical romance, there is no such thing as divorce. So these people are stuck with each other unless they decide to lead separate lives. Now, emotional entanglement is not part of the agreement, so it usually comes as a surprise to the people involved. The characters usually deny their feelings or hide their feelings, thinking that their spouse cannot possibly reciprocate. So I've just pulled up a dozen of my most recent reads of this category to show you. And I'm sure I will read many more of these, and there will be a part two of this video someday. So, first up, we have The Arrangement by Mary Balog. This is book two of the Survivors Club series. We have our charming and beautiful Viscount who is blinded in the Napoleonic Wars. He has escaped his meddling family members and he's off on his own with just his valet. A quiet young lady then rescues him from being compromised into marriage by her own cousin, and then her guardians toss her out. When our charming Viscount learns about this woman who was tossed out, he offers her a marriage of convenience with the knowledge that they'd someday follow their separate independent dreams. I loved how Sophia here was able to help modify Vincent's estate for his use so that he could actually like enjoy his garden and the lake and things like that. This one starts slow, as most Mary Balog novels do, but every so often, this slow pace of falling in love is a really enjoyable read, and all of that character driven emotion behind it. Next up, we have another book from the same series. Only a Promise by Mary Balog is book five of the Survivors Club series. And so we have Ralph, who feels terribly guilty that his three friends followed him to war and did not survive. He's cold, emotionless, totally empty. He's got all sorts of trauma. As heir to a dukedom from an elderly and ailing grandfather, though, he knows his immediate duty is to marry. Now, Chloe is visiting the Duke and Duchess as she's the daughter of the Duchess's goddaughter, and she's trying to like earn her keep as a companion. Now, she overhears Ralph talking to his grandmother about his desires or not so desires to marry, and so she proposes a marriage of convenience to him. No emotional ties, no disappointment. Well, Chloe's reputation is mired in scandal because her younger sister ran off with a married man a few years ago. And then now there's recent speculation that her father is not actually her father. She's looking forward to the comforts of the countryside. However, tragedy strikes very soon after the wedding, and they're bound for London after all. Definitely another slow burn, angsty romance with all of the drama that you'd expect from Mary Balog. And I I appreciated very much, coming to adore Ralph's grandparents throughout the story. Next, we have Some Dukes Have All the Luck by Christina Britton. This is book one in the Sinful Spinster series and continues in the same universe as her Isle of Sin series. We have Odd Girl Bronwyn, who aspires to be a published entomologist, much to the dismay of her social climbing parents. They push her to marry a titled gentleman and are even more abrasive after a past heartbreak and a very recent sort of not quite chance at courtship by a duke. Meanwhile, Ash, who's the duke, is trying to recover his runaway wards and shield them from his and his father's poor reputation. Bronwyn and Ash literally bump into each other in the street and then unexpectedly meet again at his manor when she visits his playful and inquisitive wards. Just randomly, Ash gets the bright idea, hey, you know what? I should marry someone who's going to take care of these wards, and then proposes to Bronwyn. We have a delightful marriage of convenience story where they plan to spend only 2 weeks together for appearance's sake and then slowly develop a supportive friendship. I really liked seeing these two slowly learn to trust each other, but they're still both hanging on to past hurts and betrayal. Um, I especially loved how quick Ash is to defend Bronwyn's intelligence and stand up for her, to her parents. Basically, any support of a partner's aspirations is A plus for me. So now we see Much Ado About Dukes by Eva Devon. This is book two of the Never a Wallflower series. We have two fiery and independent people who happen to agree on political aspirations, but William wants nothing to do with passion or love. So he's like, I gotta stay away from this person. She instills too much emotion in me. Well, Beatrice needs the Duke's support for her political endeavors, so she continues to seek him out. They're thrown together when his brother wants to marry her cousin, and they slowly start to strike up a friendship. When she finds out her uncle has lost all of her money, he proposes to her to help with her financial situation. I really liked reading these two very supportive friends and partners, and of course, they slowly fall in love. Next up, we have Texas Glory by Lorraine Heath. This is book two of the Texas Trilogy series. We have our oldest brother, Dallas, who is still wishing for a wife and son after his last bride left him for his brother in the last book. Now, amidst a fight over water rights on and the land on neighboring property, Dallas realizes that the family has a daughter that he didn't know about. He offers marriage to the woman in exchange for a strip of land that he will give to her family. So they start their marriage, but Cordelia has been sheltered for so long that she is absolutely terrified of her new house, her new life, her new husband. Dallas decides to give her space, and they slowly get to know each other over the course of the book. Now, at first, I thought Dallas was really gruff and unlikable, especially after reading the first book of the series, but I really appreciated the slow burn of this book and how gentle he was with Cordelia throughout. We have a quick little novella next. This is Prisoner of Love by Beverly Jenkins, and it's a completely standalone story. The setup for this one is a little crazy, but it makes for a short and steamy read. We have some law happening where a prisoner will be released if he marries someone. Okay. Well, Elizabeth was abandoned by her first husband, and the household chores are just piling up, and she needs some assistance. So she goes and marries herself a prisoner so she will have help around the farm before winter comes, and then he'll be free. What neither of them count on is being attracted to each other, so they end up sharing more than just the household chores, even though that was never the intention. This one was a delightfully steamy read, probably one of those hidden gems you rarely hear about. And so now we have Leave a Widow Wanting More by Charlie Lane. This is book one of the Cavendish Family series. This book is also available on Kindle Unlimited. So we have a bookshop meet cute and an argument over a rare book. And Sarah, who is a widow and a teenage son, and Henry, who is a widower, baron, and explorer. The baron is looking to marry and find a new mother for his daughters, while Sarah has just been fired from the bookshop and needs money. They come to an agreement to marry, and Henry takes his new bride home to meet his daughters. Now, Henry has some tragic backstory because he was so sad and distraught when his first wife died, So now he doesn't want his daughters to get like too attached to him because he doesn't want to cause their heartbreak. So he leaves to go adventuring. Meanwhile, they're heartbroken because he leaves to go adventuring. Um, and they miss him anyway. It's a whole big thing. And it turns out his new wife is too enticing, so he needs to face all these feelings that he's been trying to avoid. But it's interesting to see how this blended family comes together. Another one from Charlie Lane is Daring the Duke. This is book one of the Debutante Dares series. This series is also available on Kindle Unlimited. So we have Tabitha and her wallflower friends who pass the time at balls by daring each other to do random things. So Tabitha, who is ultimately forgettable a lot of the times, introduces herself as someone different every time she sees someone, and they never remember her except for Arthur, who's a stuffy duke and is completely displeased at being pranked. I love this microtrope of everyone forgetting about Tabitha except for the one man who notices her and can't believe everyone else forgets her. When she finds out that he is looking for the perfect Duchess, she offers herself for the job. She needs the production and finances of the dukedom to provide for herself and her sisters because her father can't work or whatever's going on. And even though she's naturally a wallflower, she has an impeccable memory and can play the role of a perfectly poised duchess. Next up, we have Counting on a Countess by Eva Lee. This is book two of the London Underground series. We find Tamsin in London to oversee a shipment of smuggled goods, but somehow finds her way to a ball. She meets Kit, who has recently come into an inheritance, but the will stipulates that he needs to marry within the month to get the money. So these two come up to an arrangement with the idea that Kit will have the money to fund his new project, and Tamsin will have the money to keep her house and her smuggling operation going. The twist is that the inheritance requires that the wife oversee all the management and spending, especially knowing Kit's history of wasteful spending. Ouch. Plus, Tamsin cannot be honest about her smuggling operation since Kit is like an upholder of the law, so there's all sorts of secret keeping between these two married peoples. Next up, we have Buying Her Viscount by Anne Marquette. This is book one of the Naughtily Ever After series. It is novella length and available on Kindle Unlimited. This one is a quick, steamy read where a spinster orphan suddenly inherits a lot of money and proposes a marriage of convenience to a handsome but impoverished viscount. For as quick of a read this book was, the steam and emotional investment of the characters was totally believable for me. I adored how they each fell in love with each other and they're shying away from it because it wasn't part of the original bargain. I definitely recommend this one, especially since it was a quick read. Next, I'll tell you about 10 Rules for Marrying a Duke by Michelle McLean. I love when a woman does the proposing in this era because it's so unexpected. So, Arabella goes straight to a rakish duke's house and proposes to him. She'll give him an heir if he marries her. And what her goal is to save her family's reputation after her older sister eloped, and she wants to protect her younger sister's prospects. So they arrange 10 rules for the marriage. I love this clear and open communication, well, until they start having feelings, right? So this one is another lovely, low angst, humorous book. And lastly, I will tell you about Convergence of Desire by Felicity Niven. This is book one of the Lovelocks of London series and available on Kindle Unlimited. This is one of my favorite reads of 2022. We start by meeting our very impoverished Earl who needs to marry a wealthy woman in order to save his estate. Our second eldest wealthy Lovelock sister is out in society, but she would rather be in her closeted room working on a mathematical proof. Ultimately, she proposes to him so that she'll be left alone to work on her math. She emphasizes there will be no marital relations. He can continue visiting brothels, and she's going to sequester herself in the country to work. Now, in this story, I love how Thomas immediately notices how frail and weak Harry is and insists on bringing a doctor to her and seeing to her health. It is a slow burn development to their friendship, and then um, learning to care for another person. These two people are both completely baffled by how much the other person means to them, and this book has delicious payoff. The last third will have you tearing up. Totally recommend. Out of all of these books, I think this one is my very favorite. So that's it. My dozen recommendations for Marriage of Convenience books. Thank you so much for watching this video. Links to all the books are in the description box below. Like and subscribe so you don't miss future videos, and you can follow me on Instagram at randomolive.